Kajiado, Entasuba. Ni habari njema kwa wakazi wa Kajiado. Burdan tunayo. Nosim FM sasa inavuma kupitia masafa yetu mapya ya 105.7.
Kitabautwa County Olkejuado.
Pata uhondo na burdan kemkem kwa lugha unayoienzi ya Kimaa. Ukiwa na Manga, Rongai, Mashuru, Kitengela, Ilbisil, Kiserian, Ngong au hata Isinya, stesheni ya Nosim FM inakupakulia mambo yote kupitia 105.7. Ni mwamko mpya na Nosim FM 105.7 Kajiado County.
Nosim FM Osimlino.
Perfect morning right here on KBC Channel 1, being the Wednesday of the 12th of August 2026. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe. Now, today, Kenya is expected to launch national conversations on matters of development of the country beyond Vision 2030. This is something that comes even when the president said during his special address that it's the most consequential exercise in national reflection and public participation since the promulgation of our constitution in 2010. So when you talk about the national conversation, who gets to sit at the table? Who gets to decide? What is the direction that we need to take as a country in as far as realizing development that we are talking about is concerned? What does Vision 2060 portend for the country, and are Kenyans going to own it? That is a conversation that will be forming part of what we shall be discussing right here in studio. And also we shall be bringing you live updates of the events as they happen in KICC. And in studio we shall be doing just a simple analysis of the events and more importantly, the national conversation that we need to have. And I'll be having Peter Wasaga, who is an advocate of the High Court, Emmanuel Magoba, who is a political scientist, and also Purity Mutua, who is the Vice President, University of Nairobi Students Association, as well as Franklin Ojembo, who is a political analyst and an aspiring politician. They shall be coming here in studio to just help us unpack maybe even the expectations of Kenyans regarding Vision 2060 and what direction we want to take beyond Vision 2030. Remember, you can be part of every conversation happening right here on KBC Channel 1. We are at KBC Channel 1 on all our social media platforms. Get to send us a WhatsApp message via the number 0707 303 212. And also, Victor Olo will be joining us from KICC later on to bring us live updates and analysis of the events as they unfold. Right about now, I want us to cross over to Ray Manyara, who is on location to bring us up to speed with the world of news. If you can hear me, Ray, good morning, and how are you doing?
Good morning to you, Mike Megwe. We're coming to you live from Naivasha in Nakuru County. We're here for the annual fifth conference that the Association of Consulting Engineers Conference that is themed around transformation, that is scaling in green growth, smart infrastructure, and resilient futures. I like that the fact today Kenya is going to be bearing witness for the launch of the 2060 vision, so to speak, given that 2030 is just around the corner and now Kenya is gravitating to 2060. So engineers have been posturing and, putting themselves in a position of development in as far as infrastructure is concerned. And today being day one, they're going to be focusing on the role of young engineers who are going to be transiting from GE to PEs. There's been quite a conversation in regard to what is required for a young engineer to actually transit into the work ecosystem. These are some of the conversations that are going to be taking place today, being day one for this particular 4-day conference that has been taking place all the way from Monday, and we are going to be keeping tabs on that mic. But other than that, we are good and ready to bring you up to speed with all stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours. And unfortunately, would want to stop with matters of murder in Kiambu County, where the family of Mary Mwende, a 30-year-old woman who was allegedly stabbed to death by her partner, want justice served and are calling on investigative agencies to ensure that it is indeed delivered. However, the family is also questioning the decision to have the suspect, Dennis Nyambane, mental assessment done at Kiambu Level 5, where he worked as a surgeon. Here is Nancy Okware with the details.
It is at this apartment in Kiambu County where Mary Mwende met her death after being stabbed on the 7th of August 2026. The incident that has left many in shock is said to have been committed by her partner, Dennis Masoba Nyambane, a surgeon at Kiambu Level 5 Hospital, and the man she met in 2021. According to Mwende's family, the couple that had a 3-year-old son had been going through a rough patch. Mwende had expressed her intentions to leave her marriage.
Aliandika hivi, hi mom, I told him that I want to walk out of this marriage. I'm emotionally and physically worn out. I feel like I've reached my limit.
The family described Mwende as a calm lady while accusing her husband of being a lover of the bottle.
Alikuwa kila wakati anaenda anakunywa pombe kulingana na ripoti ya huyu mtoto. Akikuja usiku wa manane, anaanza kumpigia kelele, anaanza kumpiga, wanapigana. Wakati mwingine anaenda anakaa nje siku 3, wiki mzima.
The family now wants justice, even as they question the credibility of the mental assessment on the suspect at Kiambu Level 5 Hospital where he worked.
Hao ni colleagues wake, how am I sure? Naweza nikakuwa sure aje kwamba tutapewa justice. Angeenda afanywe mahali kwingine ambapo hajulikani kabisa.
An autopsy conducted at Kenyatta Teaching and Referral Hospital revealed that Mwende died as a result of severe blood loss due to a penetrating sharp force trauma to the chest.
Chenye ningeomba ni serikali itufanyie haki. Yeye alikuwa mtoto mzuri. Tumelelewa naye pamoja, tumegrow naye pamoja. Na hakuwa mtoto mbaya na hakuwa anasumbua.
Tunalia, tunasikia uchungu. Tunasema serikali tupatie haki, tupate haki ya mtoto wetu.
Well, we'll continue keeping tabs on that developing story there as the family of the slain Mary Mwende continues to seek justice. Now, over to matters of politics and security is that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is calling for the suspension of the affordable housing levy, a review of taxes and changes to the petroleum pricing framework, arguing that the measures would give Kenyans more disposable income. But the remarks have drawn a sharp response from the Kenya Kwanza lawmakers who accuse Gachagua of making unsubstantiated allegations and seeking political relevance through attacks on government.
Gachagua claims the government needs to rethink some of its key economic policies, particularly those that directly affect household incomes. He wants the affordable housing levy suspended, while taxes and the petroleum pricing to be revoked to ease the pressure on Kenyans.
As the party leader of DCP, I once again called on this government to cushion the payslip by suspending the affordable housing levy and reducing the payee tax bans. This, together with the review of petroleum price framework, taxes charged will give Kenyans an increased net income. A punitive and unpredictable taxation regime is one of the principal causes of the high cost of living.
Gachagua also questioned the management of public resources, raising concerns over development loans and the absorption of funds allocated for various government projects.
On the affordable housing program, the Office of the Auditor General reports that have flagged major legal and operational risks regarding fund utilization, including untraceable international development loans, low fund absorption, and missing land ownership documentation for ongoing projects. Further, the levies deducted from Kenyan payslips are invested in a third-party financial service firm authority. This has been paid out to date.
But his remarks were quickly dismissed by Kenya Kwanza lawmakers led by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, who accused the former deputy president of making reckless and unsubstantiated claims.
The dishonored Rigathi is playing very petty politics with the country's security and its agencies. He has made numerous wild and frivolous allegations without proof.
When Baba died and he was being buried in Bondo, all the leadership of this country, both in the government and in opposition, were present. Did you see anyone looking like Rigathi Gachagua there? No. Up to today, he has not even gone to the family of Raila to tell them, Pole.
The lawmakers instead defended the government's economic record, saying the economy is now growing at about 5% and arguing that the government programs are improving the lives of ordinary Kenyans. They pointed to initiatives including the Social Health Authority, the Affordable Housing Program, and the Kazi Maju Program as some of the administration's achievements.
While still keeping up on matters politics is that minority communities from Laikipia County have thrown their weight behind President William Ruto's administration and his bid for a second term. They have, however, called for greater recognition, equal representation, and inclusive development.
Kama jamii ya Laikipia. Leaders drawn from minority communities, including Pokot, Yaku, Wakeyo, Enderois, and members of the Kamatusa group, say they had resolved to unite in pursuit of their constitutional rights and ensure their voices are heard in governance.
Siasa Laikipia, sisi tunataka umoja na tunataka haki katika jamii yote wakati wanafanya kila kitu katika serikali ya Laikipia County. Napaka juu, sisi tumesaulika kwa muda mrefu. Tunataka tujulikane ya kwamba tuko. Lakini sisi hatupingi mtu yeyote.
Isiwe tu mambo moja ni majority wins na majority inabeba mambo yote. Wanabeba mambo ya majority na pia hao majority wanabeba mambo ya minorities. They reaffirmed their backing for President William Ruto's leadership, saying they support his bid to serve for a second term.
Wale wanaongea mbaya kwa Kenya hii ambayo Mungu alitupea tukiwa kabla 47, hakuna mtu mmoja anaweza kuja kuvunja ati yeye ndio muhimu kuliko wengine.
Tumefanya declaration ya kuwa tutasonga mbele sisi sote kuhakikisha kuwa serikali ya kesho sisi ndio tunaenda kuitengeneza.
These as youth in Busia County were urged to shun political violence and embrace peace as Kenya prepares for the next general election.
Tunajua kwa muda mrefu tumekuwa na changamoto ya gunzi hapa Busia na vijana wamejitokeza kupitia siasa place. Tunasema kwamba wakati umefika, tunaambia wanasiasa wetu kwamba vijana wasitumiwe kwa sababu ya kuleta political violence.
Led by youth leaders David Katindi, Bashir Were, Austin Juma, and Oscar Tore, they challenge politicians to stop exploiting young people for political expediency.
Hapa Busia ndo kulikuwa na vikundi vya vijana, wengine wanasanya usuru, wengine wanasema kabla weke mkutano hapa lazima walipe, wengine wanasema wako na seli yao private ya kuhold watu.
Kuepukana na maneno ya gunism na kuepukana na zile maneno chafu ama mambo mbaya yenye inaweza kuunganisha jamii yetu ili tusipata amani.
Meanwhile, Aida Odinga, the widow of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, met members of the National Liberal Party for a consultative forum.
So away from Laikipia County, we head into Kitui County, where the Kitui government has admitted headwinds in recovering 155 million shillings that was loaned out to vulnerable groups during the 2022 general election period without collateral. Now, appearing before the County Public Investment Committee, Kitui County Governor Julius Malombe told the senators the monies issued were not covered by the insurance policy that was required as per the legal requirements.
In 2022, Kitui County Government, then under the leadership of Charity Ngilu, established an empowerment fund for vulnerable groups, disbursing at least 160 million shillings as loans. But the regulations passed by the County Assembly then allowed groups applying for 200,000 shillings to access the loans without security.
That the evidence that I shall give before this committee.
Appearing before the Senate County Public Investment Committee to respond to audit queries, Kitui Governor Julius Malombe admitted the impossibility of recovering the money.
I can tell you the county government has put money and put teams to go and talk to those people, including our sub-county, ward and village administrators, and getting this money repaid is almost impossible, if not.
Out of the 160 million shillings disbursed, only 5 million shillings has been recovered. The senators questioned the import of developing regulations that allow 200,000 shillings to be loaned out without a collateral.
So, is that all? You just send a text, bulk SMS? Is that proof enough that you're making effort towards getting that money?
You can imagine that amount advanced less than 200K, amounting to 150 million. You are now asking for write-off. Really?
The Office of the Auditor General has now cautioned the Senate against endorsing the county's proposal to write off the debt before ascertaining that the funds were not lost through fraud. The senators now want counties to review the funds and give the money through financial institutions to enhance recoverability.
Now, looking at matters health, the country's healthcare system continues to expand, with private players driving increased investment, innovation and access to care. Pathcare Laboratories has opened its 68th branch in Nyahururu, Laikipia County, as it seeks to complement government efforts in expanding access to affordable and quality medical services. The facility is expected to offer specialized lab tests closer to residents, reducing the need to travel long distances for healthcare services. The company's chief executive officer says the facility will offer specialized tests at the grassroots level. Laikipia County Deputy Governor Ruben Kamuri urged more investors to establish healthcare facilities in the county and across the country, saying that collaboration between government and private providers is key to achieving universal access to quality and affordable healthcare.
We believe that the policy frameworks around the public-private partnerships here in Laikipia County and in the national government are very, very welcome initiatives, because then they allow the private sector to complement. Our expansion logic is to condense geography, is to ensure that people don't have to travel long distances, and a conducive public-private policy partnership is a very good initiative to ensure that the real beneficiary is the people who need the services the most.
There's a lot we can collaborate on. One, on the quality management systems. Two, we can also collaborate on seamless flow of a referral system for the samples. Still continue as a capacity building for our staff. For us to be able to succeed in healthcare, we need all partners. There's what Laikipia County has been able to do. We have like 92 facilities. Level 5, we have 3 facilities. Level 4, we have 7 facilities. 92 facilities in terms of dispensaries. That is not alone to cover for the 1 million people. We need more partners with even various specialties.
Now, still on matters health, his government says that fraud in the healthcare system is still a major impediment to the progress made under the Social Health Authority and the country's agenda. Now, in Nairobi, Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale said that they have defended the ongoing reforms, saying that they have helped SHA strengthen oversight and detect fraudulent activity, as well as recover 200 million shillings.
2 years into the country's health reforms, the government says 32.2 million Kenyans are now registered under the Social Health Authority. But with the numbers, questions are being raised about the alleged continued charging of patients for services that are supposed to be free under primary health care.
Even in this financial year, government has put a budget of 19 billion to treat Kenyans who go to dispensaries, to health facilities, to some parts of Level 4. You charge a Kenyan, it's a criminal offense.
Health Authority CEO Dr. Masi Mwangangi singled out fraud as a major concern, with fingers pointing at SHA officers and health facilities as the main culprits.
Last week, we had one of the premier facilities, private facility that is probably the #1 facility in this country, come in to tell me that a lady who is a civil servant had brought her sister using her benefits and had admitted her sister. That's fraud by Kenyans.
SHA also faced tough questions on whether the contributory component of the scheme can remain financially sustainable, even as the government confirmed plans to enlist more contributors, especially workers in the informal sector. The meeting also focused on the ongoing nurses and clinical officers strike.
Issue around the healthcare workers and healthcare professionals is going to be resolved bit by bit, whether it is at the county level or the national level, because we do not have a patient for counties and a patient for the national level.
The ministry further gave an update on disease surveillance, warning that changing disease patterns and regional outbreaks continue to pose a threat. The forum was a precursor to the Kenya Health Summit scheduled for 18th and 19th of August.
Well, now to the counties that the government says that the demarcation of a section of the Mau in the Mau Eastern Block seeks to protect critical areas of the water tower from human encroachment and destruction, and not to dispossess the communities of their land. Now, the team leader of the demarcation exercise from the Directorate of Survey, Lawrence Ngetich, says the exercise that resumed this yesterday morning seeks to put boundaries and beacons to separate human settlement from protected areas.
The Mau Eastern Block demarcation exercise seeks to establish boundaries and beacons separating human settlements from the 35,301-hectare protected water catchment amid fears of evictions and conflict involving the Ogiek community. The Ogiek want the government to first implement the African court ruling, awarding them 157.85 million shillings in compensation.
So wale watu wako na mashamba in between one pillar and another, hawajui mpaka ni wapi. Umeelewa hiyo? So tumekuja kusurvey sasa along that boundary ile tuliweka. Tutaweka beacons zingine in between. Kuonyesha so that ukiwa nje unajua uko wapi, uko nje.
In Teso North, more than 500 youth are set to benefit from a fully sponsored international digital skills course aimed at equipping them with practical skills for the digital economy. Teso North MP Oku Kaunya says the initiative will continue empowering young people with market-driven skills to access jobs and create businesses.
This particular program is going to be very useful for those who have completed in enabling them to get online jobs. It will also enable them to open opportunities for further advancement on that area of technology, ICT technology.
In Langas Ward in Uasin Gishu County, residents are said to benefit from more than 57 million shillings invested in road upgrades, electricity connections and street lighting. Langa's ward MCA Francis Muya says residents will not pay connection fees, with the county government allocating an additional 7 million shillings to support the electricity project.
Use 24 million. Now this one is hiyo inakuja pesa ngapi? Around thereabout. Tunaweza sema we have 100 people with electricity.
Finally, transport and business activities along the border highway have been disrupted following the further collapse of Migori Bridge. Motorists and residents are now using an alternative route that adds more than 13 kilometers to their journeys. Residents and traders are faulting Migori County government, accusing it of failing to give adequate attention to the reconstruction of the strategically important bridge, which serves as a key link between Migori and Isebania border.
There was no casualty, there was no one who was hurt in the water pen yesterday night. But I want to ask our leaders to act swiftly on this road. This is the A1 road that is connecting us from Isebania, Migori to Nairobi.
Well, that was just a roundup of what has been happening in the last 12 hours across the counties. We invite you to also check our website on further details in regard to what is happening in as far as business and economy is concerned. The website is www.kbc.co.ke. But before we bring in the headlines to a close, just to update you, WAFCON Eco KBC and what you should be looking out for in the course of the day, being Wednesday the 12th, we have Algeria who is going to be squaring it out with Malawi, while Morocco at 11 p.m. tonight is going to be facing off with Cameroon. So respectively at 8 p.m. Algeria, Malawi, at 11 p.m. Morocco and Cameroon. As we bring this to a close, it's just to remind you that we are in Naivasha, Nakuru County, as day one or day two, if you like, of the ASEC 5th annual conference here, and the conversation is themed around engineering transformation, scaling green growth, smart infrastructure, and resilient futures. Today being day two, the conversation is going to be about scaling capacities, especially of young engineers into the entrepreneurship scale, or in terms of taking advantage of the current major projects that the government is currently undertaking. We're going to be keeping tabs on that. And without further ado, let me hand you back to Broadcasting House with Mike Megwe for the rest of the programming. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Ray Manyara, coming to us live from Naivasha. Thank you so much for bringing up to speed with what is happening in the world of news. And also we shall be following up on the conference that is happening in Naivasha. Back here in studio, we shall be tackling a conversation that is very important to this country. And we are looking at the national conversation that is going to be launched today, Beyond Vision 2030, and the direction that the country is going to take. Already my guests are in studio, but we are going to take a very short break. Once we come back, we commence on the conversation. Stay with us.
Delivery into the penalty box. Taken well by Michele. With a right knee, I think. Okoronkwo, there's the delivery. And there's the heroics again from Michele. Biodun. Oladipo. There's the delivery. High ball. That's a really beautiful ball. That's a great header. And look at that. Stop coming from Michele. And the total energies woman of the match is no one else but Michele. Congratulations. Felicitations.
Pindi tunapowasha vifaa vyetu, tunapata fursa ya kutangamana na wasikilizaji wetu.
Karibu sana thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Rwiga.
Tunapeperusha utangazaji uliobobea katika habari,
nĩ ũndũ wa macio na mangĩ maingĩ,
burudani,
haha nĩ harĩa tũkoragwo tũkĩigua nyĩmbo mwaki nyĩmbo hota
na hamasisho la kiroho. Usiachwe nyuma. Jiunge nasi kwa safari ya kufana katika 99.5 FM. Soro FM.
Many thanks for staying with us right here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe. We are talking about Vision 26 Beyond Vision 2030. That is a national conversation expected to be launched today at the KICC. But before we get into that conversation, I want to take you through the front pages of our local dailies, and I'll be starting with the Standard. Gachagua bombshell. This is what is reported or captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Broken promises, failed plans, soaring debt, corruption, and alleged state-backed killings are some of the things Rigathi Gachagua accuses President William Ruto of perpetrating. In a blistering attack, the former deputy president alleged his former boss was presiding over a collapsing economy, trampling on the rule of law and using a revolving door of grand plans to distract Kenyans from 4 years of broken promises. The government leaders, however, dismissed the claims as the thoughts of a leader desperate for publicity. That is what is reported on the front page of the Standard. And you can read that story on page 6 and 7 of the same daily. Moving on to the Daily Nation. 4 wasted years, that is what is being reported on the front page of the Daily Nation. Opposition leader Rigathi Gachagua has issued a harsh assessment of President Ruto's 4-year in office, accusing his administration of reneging on its manifesto pledges and implementing draconian policies. He cited wasteful spending, corruption, and punitive taxes, goons, and abductions as among state excesses. That story is told on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. ODM demands DP slot 50% share of state posts. ODM wants President Ruto to name a party member his running mate in the presidential election and to commit to cede half of government appointments should the coalition win the polls. Read that story on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Students wishing to change varsity courses in distress. That story is told on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Limited university slots frustrate students seeking course transfers. That story is fleshed out on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And finally, on the front page of the Star newspaper, ODM demands 50% of Ruto government and posts and DP posts. That story is told on page 6 of the Star newspaper. IEBC changes ballot paper color codes. Presidential ballot colors will be white. National Assembly will be green. MCA will be brown. Senate yellow. Woman representative purple. Governor sky blue, and referendum grey. We slept in the office. Maura recalls days of Gen Z protest. That story is told on page 3 of the Star newspaper. Set aside 105 million shillings for disappeared victims, court tells government. Read that story on page 2 of the Star newspaper. WAFCON shows growth of African women's football. That story is told on page 14 and 15 of the Star newspaper. And finally, blame yourselves. COB tells governors, or the controller of budget tells governors, as salary crisis hits over 35 counties. That is what is captured on the front pages of our local dailies. And now we move into our conversation that is focusing on the national conversation beyond Vision 2030. Remember, that is something that will be formally launched today at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. And this is something that the president said that it is the most consequential exercise in national reflection and public participation since the promulgation of a new constitution in 2010. For that conversation in studio, on my far left, I'm joined by Wakili Peter Wasaga, who is an advocate of the High Court. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Good to see you.
I hope you are doing well.
Very fine.
Yes.
Kenya.
Karibu sana. Karibu sana. And also Purity Mutua, who is a student leader at the University of Nairobi.
Pleasure to be here, Mike. Thank you so
sana.
much.
Asante sana. Emmanuel Magoba is a political scientist. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And Franklin Ojiambo is a political analyst and aspiring politician. Thank you for making time.
Asante sana.
Let's get into the conversation. First of all, Wakili, we're talking about matters that go beyond 2030. First of all, what do you think of Vision 2060? Are we ready to have this conversation?
Thank you so much, Migui, for having me on the set this morning.
Karibu sana.
I'm a believer of the Constitution. I'm a believer of the Word of God. And I'm a believer of the rule of law. When you look at the architect of a country, it's basically the current generation or a given generation holding specific roles, resources in trust for the coming generations. And if I borrow from the good book, they say that where there is no vision, people perish. So it's always important to have a vision. And this vision must stem from the Constitution. You see, the Constitution is the supreme law. And one thing about our new Constitution, that it brought about so many things. It expanded the Bill of Rights. It brought about independent commissions. It brought about or strengthened the national values, which basically is the bedrock of every political decision or every decision. And remember, the law governs everyone. No one is above the law, including the president, the politicians, and even the least among the least, if there is any such definitions. So when we sit down as a country to come up with a vision, we must look at the Constitution. So it must be done within the confines of the Constitution, basically stemming from Article 10, that public participation. And I believe that is why the country is having such conversations, so that they can plan for the future. And number two, we had a Vision 2030. Vision 2030 is ending in just 4 years. In fact, less than 4 years.
Yeah.
So this is just a furtherance of the Vision 2030. Because after Vision 2030, what next? Then number 3 is we must learn from the past. What are some of the achievements we've had from the Vision 2030, and how best can we further it to achieve the economic prosperity that we've been yearning for, to achieve infrastructural development, social welfare and social development, access to education, access to good infrastructure. We have to compare notes. We have to, the current regime has to give us, because right now they are the custodian.
Because you see, like I said, for example, the 2010 constitution was promulgated by the president of Kenya, by then Mwai Kibaki.
Yes.
But you see, the implementation was actually done by those who actually, some of them did not support that constitution, because it is the law. That is the same thing with Vision 2030. It could be developed as at this point by the current president, William Ruto. But the implementation could be done by my brother, who is aspiring politician. I said my name is
Franklin.
Franklin.
Yes.
Franklin will be the president tomorrow. And if Franklin is the president, he will be mandated or tasked with the implementation of the Vision 2060, even if he did not support it, because that now becomes part of the part of the policies, part of the documents that have to be referred to, both by the political class, even in their manifestos. They have to structure them. In fact, there should be a very strict guideline so that manifestos borrow heavily from the Vision 2060 or from a given, the vision that is in place at a particular time. So I totally support the discussion of the Vision 2060 because this is the right time to discuss and plan for our future.
Yeah, Purity, still on that, are we ripe for a conversation? Given that we are almost at the tail end of Vision 2030, are we ripe for that conversation, because this regards the development and the future of our country?
I'd like to quote something that Charles Dickens wrote, and it was saying that it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. We are at the backdrop of a severe drop in political trust, and the faith of Kenyans has been crushed consistently over the years. And we are having a conversation on another new plan when in its entirety Vision 2030 was not fully implemented. And so we are at a backdrop where we don't even trust the ones who are initiating the conversation as to what exactly will be different this time. I agree. At the end of the day, we need to have a framework and a plan, but we have a backlog of things that are yet to happen. We have youth development, education, healthcare. The vision bearers of 2030, I believe, would be disappointed at some of the milestones that we have been able to capture. A plan is welcome, but more so action speaks to the youth more than anything else. We are tired of extractive politics, tokenism. Sometimes you might ask, this conversation is quite timely, running down to the election. And so I speak for many to say that there's a lot of doubts as to what the conversation is about at the end of the day. Yeah.
Magoba, what do you think, moving forward towards the end of Vision 2030 and now looking at another 30 years or so, are we ripe for that? Are we ripe for that conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a moment that we need to have these discussions going on. And maybe I'll bring you from a point of history where we've come from. And as Marcus Garvey says, a man without history is like a tree without roots. You find that before we go to Vision 2030, in 1965, we had the sessional paper, which was now aligning Kenyans' plan to the African socialism. You remember in the 60s, they were about the Africanization and stuff. And then we moved to economic recovery strategy in 2003 to 2007, which was now to feature on our economic development, of which we haven't achieved as much as we had planned in that strategy. And then I don't know if it was a coincidence, but then in 2008 we are now launching the Vision 2030, which was now to make Kenya a middle income and an industrialized state. So you find that as a country we've been moving, and it's not just Kenya alone. When we were having the sessional paper, Uganda on the other side, they were having the Common Man's Charter. Tanzanians were having the Arusha Declaration 1967. So you find that as countries and neighboring states, we have always been having an agenda. And as it is said, a good idea will always make way for a better idea. We had Vision 2030. We might have not achieved as much as we wanted by then, but we've made a step forward. And now, being a good idea, it is right time for it to step aside and give way for other conversations. Now they are beyond 2030. And this still, my brother Wakili mentioned about the Vision 2060, which aligns with the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the Africa we want. And you find that this incorporates all the aspects that we need for our economic development, political and social development. So I strongly believe that it is a right conversation at the right moment.
Franklin, are we going, because this should be a national conversation, it is intended to be a national conversation, but are we going to be honest about how we undertake this conversation in as far as development and the direction that the country wants to take is concerned?
Mike, I want to say that it is fantastic to have a vision. And Vision 2060 is a fantastic vision. But the question is, are we ready for the vision? Let me take you back to Vision 2030. We had 3 pillars. The first pillar is economic. Have we exhausted when it comes to economic part? Have we tried to build Mama Mboga? Have we tried to build the youths? We still have a gap that we need to fix. Let's talk of health. Do we still have good health facilities? Our children, our pregnant mothers are still having issues of children dying in the hospital. I mean, there's a big gap that we need to fix as a country. And there's this for social pillar. You see, the youth are still complaining. They are jobless. There's gender equality. People are still fighting out there because of resources. When it comes to political pillar, there's no transparency. There's no accountability. So I believe this is a gap that we need to fill for 2030 first, before we rush to 2060. Assuming you are going to Mombasa, you have to go through Mombasa Road, because life is a journey. And a vision is like a journey. You go step by step, you move one day at a time, you implement something that we've talked about, and again, you make things work. So I think it's time first we focus on completing the first assignment, which is Vision 2030.
So in other words, we need to take stock of what 2030 has been able to accomplish and the gaps that we have failed to fill.
Exactly, because we are rushing to achieve a goal, and we have not completed our first goal that we had input as a country.
Wakili, there's something you said, and based on what the president had said during his special address, he did say that, you know, we need a long-term framework that survives individual presidents, individual governments, and even election cycles. Should a vision like 2060, we are now looking at it beyond 2030, should it be anchored in the constitution, in law, to ensure that whoever comes up with any manifesto, regardless of their political affiliation, aligns with the vision that the country has?
Thank you so much. You know, a plan, like I mentioned, a plan stems from somewhere. A plan, for you to develop a plan, there are constitutional requirements for that. For that structure. One of it is the public participation, and that is actually what is being done today. Regardless of whatever political side you are expected to bring in your input into the development of a vision. So the implementation of these visions must also be in accordance with the Constitution. And anything that is against the Constitution is to be declared null and void. You could be having very brilliant ideas, but without following the process, the due process, the law, then all is in vanity. That is why there are very good things that have been declared unconstitutional, not because of the content or the substance, but because of the process, the procedural defaults. Looking at how then can we have Vision 2030 You see, we have a problem, and our problem is not a vision. Our problem is in the implementation. And it's not complete failure of the implementation. We have to give credit where it's due. One, as much as there are so many misses in the 2030 vision, which we intend to salvage, one thing that must be very clear is that there are frameworks on accountability in the Constitution. So that if there is the plunging of public resources, there are also institutions that are meant to deal with such vices. Number two is the shortness or the changing political terrains. In Kenya, unlike other countries, our politics is not issue or ideology based. It's majorly on interest based. So that when a politician comes into power, his concentration is in the retention of power, either getting a second term, and of course there are allies who either walk out and new allies come, who perhaps have to be accommodated into the government. So most of the concentration is not on the implementation of a manifesto or of a vision, but it's in surviving politically. So that has been a very great challenge. The political bad manners in this country has really costed us. For example, in 2022, the current president, had a plan, and his plan, he crafted it together with Rigathi Gachagua, who was the then deputy president. He had very many allies. But coming to 2024, things changed. Those who had come up with a framework to develop the manifesto of the UDA government, and at large the Vision 2030, because it's a work in progress. But if it's infrastructure, there are things that are politically instigated. There are roads, there are areas that are getting roads for the first time. For example, if you've seen on the social media, for the first time there is a road being constructed at Sindo, where I come from. And of course we have been in this. We got independence from 1963. We've never seen any tarmac road from that time, but it's because of the political alignment that now we are getting a road for the first time. So that if you are misaligned politically, then you miss on very key developments. That's the same thing. Right now we are talking about the ODM faction joining government. And right now those who are opposing this government, assuming they get power, and that's why I always talk and stand for the law, not for political sides. Of course, we have to be politicians in one way or the other, because politicians or political parties are formed to get power. But one thing is that when the reality checks in, when there is a new government in place, and now the responsibility squarely lies on them, most likely the alliances that you see today will not be there. Look at Senegal. Those who came together, the president and the former prime minister, who came together to form a government, just 2 years, in fact less than a year into that election, they are reading from different scripts. So that political bad manners, if we could get a framework of getting a ministry, actually a ministry for the implementation of that Vision 2060. And it is well targeted, and there are watchdogs to look at it within the confines of the Constitution, then it can survive politics. It can survive politics. Next year, we are getting into an election. And the reason as to why there is the debate of whether this government should discuss it or this government should discuss it is basically a question of which political side do you support. But when we look at it objectively, it is the role of the government, not the politicians. And who is the government right now? The government is led by the executive, which is led by the current president, and they have that responsibility. That is why when there is abduction, we do not ask Sifuna. We do not ask Matiang'i. We ask the president. We asked Kipchumba Murkomen. When there was shooting, when Rigathi Gachagua released a press conference, he actually addressed Kipchumba Murkomen. Why? It's because the responsibility, the buck stops
with the government.
With the government.
And, you know, Purity, if we are having a conversation, are we able, if, for instance, let's say we are talking about Vision 2060 as a country, are we able to look at it objectively, regardless of which political side we support?
Mike, I have to be honest with you. It's a very tainted, we're looking through tainted glasses. Definitely, because it is being led by the political class, it definitely will become a political conversation. That cannot be separated from the conversation. And then again, we have seen political rhetorics being used in the name of national development, but in the end it crumbles behind a lot of scandals. And I'd say one of the conversations that should be had is intergenerational equity. We are carrying the burden, and we will carry the burden of debt that do not belong to us. And yes, they might say that infrastructure had to be built, but at the end of the day, we all know that that infrastructure also became a money-making scheme. And so we are going to be carrying over injustices. We're going to be carrying over debts that did not belong to us. 2060, we will be the CSs, the PSs, the presidents of that vision. And so the conversation has to be now also in terms of ownership. Who is owning this conversation? Because we will be called for these rallies, and that is what has become the clarion call. Basically just using youth for tokenism and paternalistic exploitation. And then at the end of the day, when things happen and real conversations are had, we're discarded. We're 75% of this conversation, but at the end of the day, what we want is ownership of the conversation. It shouldn't be a top-down approach. Vision 2030 came when a lot of young people were still young, and in fact, I do believe there's a gap, a knowledge gap as to what exactly it entailed as a whole in totality. This is ours to write. And in as comfortable as it sounds, uncomfortable as it sounds, we might actually have to remove politics out of a conversation like this. Because at the end of the day, we are the vision bearers, we will be the burden carriers, we will be the ones to deal with a country either broken or restored. Yeah.
And from a political science perspective, you know, how realistic is it to expect that the successive governments will honor this long-term vision when we live at a time when political incentives are tied to a 5-year cycle? Is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible if it is people-owned. If this discussion is ideally the people, or rather mass-owned discussion, then it is more realistic to happen rather than if it is owned by a few elites. And the Zambian author Dambisa Moyo, in her book The Dead Aid, you find that the problem that we've been having as Africa is that we've been over-dependent on the external forces. Most of the policies we've been implementing, they have been externally enforced policies, and that's why we are now lamenting about the Vision 2030. We are now talking about the failures of all those ideas or policies that we had discussed before, because you find that majorly there were no conversations, or rather public conversations around them. You are given a booklet and then you have to implement this as a country. For instance, I'll give you an example of the 2015 MDGs, the MDGs, after they failed to be implemented, not just in Kenya, but in even other African countries, we then had the SDGs, which are also supposed to be ending in 2030. But you find that we are still not at par as at what was given for us to implement. And that is why I feel like it's very critical, it is very timely that as a nation, I mean, we all go to the table, discuss this, and contribute to its implementation as a people, and not that a few elites sat in a room somewhere, came up with a document, and then we are being called upon to implement whatever is being thrown at us. It is just as someone can give you... I remember when we were growing up, my dad could take a stick whenever it was almost Christmas period, and then he will take the measurements of my shoe size, go to the shop, and then come with the exact shoe that fits me, because it will fit me because the discussion of this agenda. Emmanuel, you need a shoe, bring yours, and everything. Rather than my dad going to the shop and coming with a shoe, it will either fit or it won't fit me. So I feel like it can be only implemented if the masses, or rather the Kenyans, the public, are involved at the formatory stages.
Very important point there, because there's a question that comes. Are we starting on a positive or a different footing as opposed to when we started Vision 2030? That is what we are going to examine once we come back from this short break. Stay with us.
Well, she's still got possession. Nigeria on the attack. It's excellent play down that left-hand side. The shot comes in. Michaeli, the follow-up. Doesn't happen. Kanu can't get there. It all opened up over on that far side. Very dangerous indeed. But look, Cameroon now on the attack as a long searching ball goes out to the right-hand side. It has been kept in. There's the race towards the byline, still in possession. It goes out over the line, and it will be a goal kick for Nigeria, who breathe a sigh of relief after that wonderful run from Igulu.
The wait is over. KBC Iko Huduma Center. Starting with Nairobi, kupata huduma za KBC imekuwa rahisi. From digital guidance and signet services to booking of commercial adverts and documentaries. Visit our dedicated desks at Huduma Center GPO, Times Square, Makadara, Kibera, or Eastleigh. Tunakungoja hapo. Whether it's a casual announcement or a specialized media solution for your business, we are here to serve you. KBC at Huduma Centers. Moving closer to you. Your station, your service.
All right, welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. We're talking about the national conversation beyond 2030. Now, Magoba made a very interesting point there. And Franklin, I want to rope you in on this. When you look at how we started Vision 2030 and how now we are starting the conversation around Vision 2060, would you say we are starting on a different footing where the president is calling on the nation to sit down, reflect, and just chart the way forward regarding the development of the country?
I think, Mike, the president has a vision for the country, which is good.
Yes.
And everyone has a vision. Where you work, you have a vision, where you want to be.
Yes.
At home, you have a vision where your family wants to be. But the question is, how do we achieve the vision? And I want to I want to believe that everyone has a role to play in Kenya Vision, either 2030 or 2060. Why am I saying that? Because we cannot achieve a vision without working as a team. And we need everyone to come and play his or her role to achieve this vision. I'll give an example. We have NGOs. They have a key role in helping us achieve visions here in the country. We have foundations. We have CBOs. We have political leaders. We have churches. We have stakeholders everywhere. So I believe achieving something, people have to come together, have a common goal, and work towards it. Because there's no way the government can achieve this vision alone. And that's why they are calling upon people or stakeholders to come and help achieve this goal. So it is achievable if we decide to speak one language and work toward that language.
Speak in one language. And Purity, you know, most of the young Kenyans will live much of the vision 2060. Do you think, are there safeguards that needs to be put to ensure that today's youth do not simply, are not simply used to endorse a vision, but have a meaningful role in ensuring that this vision is achieved?
I think the answer is very simple. We have mentioned the political class, the elite. Let's just talk about it as a government. The government needs to be a listener, a good listener. I think we are at a backdrop of a heartbroken country. There's people grieving their children, mothers grieving their sons, young people that have been disillusioned by the education dream, the Mwai Kibaki dream of free education and the promise of formal employment. There's young people who struggle to believe that anything good can come from Serikali. And so we have to cover the backlog first. We are in a place where we have to rebuild trust before we talk about a vision to begin with. Do we have a plan for the country? Yes. But we are standing on a very fractured foundation. And so what the conversation is, number one, if this vision is to happen, it should be binding. There should be a binding implementation framework. Because Vision 2030 became a shifting goalpost for every political campaign. There was the campaign that Uhuru came in with, the Big Four agenda, and then with Ruto came the bottom-up economic transformation. Even within those frameworks, you still find that we're unable to meet the threshold. And so what happened was Vision 2030 was at the backdrop of whatever new wave that they had to manufacture to rally the crowds. And I think at the end, we all need to have, and that is why you find there's a lot of policy inconsistency. Things shift, even with education, for example. 3 years ago, we had NFM. Now, in the next week or 2 weeks, we'll be having a new structure. And it fractures the processes as they go along. And you can imagine something as basic as education, where children are involved. There's a lot of inconsistency. How so? In any other factor of life, whether it be employment creation, job creation, youth development fund, vocational training as a whole. And so, if anything, this should come from the people first, not top-down. Vision 2030 was top-down. And I see the same happening with Vision 2060. And what will happen is the political class will end up leading in a vacuum.
So if it has to come from the people, how is that going to happen from bottom up, going instead of top down?
Number one, you'd have to realize that it is not like the Kenyans have not been speaking. They've been speaking for a long time. I think the conversation is, how do we channel it? How do we remove the crown, remove the jewels, remove the robe, and come down to the people and have an honest conversation? And also acknowledging wrongs. I think that's a problem. We walk over as if nothing happened. And so it is about where are we at now? What is your grievances? I had mentioned this before. There was a time we had a conversation on NFM, and we had told the PS at the time, she had brought student leaders together, that this model is not going to work. 3 years down the line, we have more people unable to join university because of the fear of a fee above 100 and 200,000. And even so, even in my capacity, I have had to take people to help myself to advocate for at least for them to do the exams because they have fee balances of more than 500,000. And these are people who are coming from rural areas, some who are even orphans. If anything, we have spoken. They have called us to barazas. You have seen things like Jukwaa or Salama happening. They call us upon the stage over and over, time and time again. We say the things that hurt us the most. It is about action now. It is action, if anything, that will speak for them.
Yes, Wakili, you know, there is acknowledgement that when it comes to Vision 2030, there are places we have lagged behind. And also we have been compared to countries who have been able to achieve economic success. For instance, China, South Korea, and the like. But what do we need to confront? Why have we repeatedly failed to turn our potential into comparable economic success?
Thank you so much. I think there should also be a comparison in the region, how Kenya has done. And Kenya has done fairly well as compared to its neighbors. But that notwithstanding, we are a country governed by the Constitution. And I would highly recommend that Vision 2060 should not just be looked at in terms of the GDP.
Yes.
It must be measured against, as against the national values, which is Article 10 of the Constitution, which is the rule of law, public participation, which my sister has actually mentioned. How then do we include the public into this national conversation? How do we pick their thoughts? How is it included in a vision? Of course, it should not also be lost on us that the sovereignty can either be exercised directly or indirectly. The Constitution and the law as it is presumes that when you elected your member of parliament, you sent him to speak on your behalf in the national discussions, that is either in the Senate or in the National Assembly. Number two, when you elected your member of county assembly, the law presumes that you donated your power so that where you cannot access, including the parliament, to air out your issues, you should be able to pick up your grievances and submit them in the implementation, and they should be included in the laws. So that is number one. Number two, we also have to check on the excesses of the executives. And before we look at the excesses of the executives, we also have to look at it vis-a-vis separation of power. The Constitution is very clear on the roles of each and every stakeholder or arm of government, including the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, which comprise of the National Assembly and the Senate. So if we have to be very candid with how we do things, one of the things that must be corrected is the capture of the National Assembly and, of course, the executive. The executive should be there to help the president and be independent. That is why the Constitution was very deliberate in having professionals as members of the executive. Actually, they should not hold any political seat.
Yes.
They should majorly or entirely be ministers. Unlike in the old Constitution, where one would be a minister and at the same time a member of parliament. So there should be that independence. But right now there is no independence and there is a lot of capture. So if there is capture of any arm of the government, then there is a likelihood that something somewhere will lag Why? Because there is no accountability and there is no oversight. Because if there is a vision, if there is a budget, if there is a constitution, if there is a law, there should be a body. Actually, there is a body that is tasked with the mandate of ensuring that there is clear oversight. The other thing is development. And one thing I love about the 2010 Constitution, it brought about the devolution. You see, in the old dispensation, there was this common say that siasa mbaya maisha mbaya. So that if you were not in government, of course the narrative of shares, if you were not in government, then you did not have shares in the government. Then it meant that you should be locked out completely from any development. But now with devolution, there is an equitable share of each and every county, an allocation. And you see, now the main problems that we had in the National Assembly, they trickle down. So that we pump money into devolution, but they go in financing individual lifestyles. How many governors have been impeached because of corruption? How many governors are battling with corruption cases? How many MPs, even though the law is very clear that NGCDF is independent, but they have decided to click and cling on it, and they still have their pictures embedded on public structures constructed using public resources. How do you draw the balance? And they still use it as a campaign tool. So we should have a very clear line between the vision, the constitution, and the individuals. And this can only happen if institutions are allowed to work. Independent institutions, for example, are they independent? Are they independent? They should be independent. There is one scholar, and that is something that is very peculiar in our country. We have very many laws, but without following those laws. In law, we call it constitution without constitutionalism. We have very good policies, but when it comes to the implementation of these policies, we are totally clueless, or we totally ignore them. So that is something that we also need to look at. The other thing is Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Leadership and integrity we cannot succeed without implementing Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Migwi. Because why do we have it in the Constitution? It's because we wanted a country that is governed by people with integrity. And the integrity should not just be that which is said, it should be seen. We've had people with, candidates with very questionable characters contest, some with even questionable degrees from questionable institutions. They are cleared, they contest. There are people with cases in courts. They misuse the judicial systems to stay in power. Of course, as a lawyer, if I will speak for the law, is that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. That means that you still have the mandate to proceed and to defend whatever you believe is right without being presumed guilty, even if it is in the public domain. A clear example, for example, if you are accused of murder, you take plea, you are released on bail, you go back to be a governor, you go back to be a president, you go back to be a member of parliament until 5 or 10 years when you shall be found guilty of an offense. You shall have done wonders. That is why there is a lot of there's a lot of problem with the scams that you see, the gold scams. They squander a lot of money from individuals and unsuspecting individuals. Then they use the same money to pay for the bail, which is a constitutional right. And after paying for that bail, they bomb another place, and it is a cycle. So why can't we look at the integrity? Just the last thing I want to say, Migwi. There is one I don't know whether it's a politician, no, Matiang'i. He mentioned in the run-up to 2022 elections that most of the candidates who are vying were actually wash. I think it's in public records. it's in the public domain. It's something that is in the, I think I can't actually pick where it was, but he categorically said it. Then he was a minister for internal security. Why? And some of these candidates were cleared to run. So how then are you going to achieve a Vision 2060 using, or with the implementers being with very questionable integrity? So we have to look at the Constitution before we look at any implementation of even a vision, even any law. We have to go back to the Constitution.
Very important.
That is where, and that is the only way we will be able to succeed with any vision, including post-2060.
Because when we talk about a vision, you know, the matters of integrity have to play a role, as Wakili is saying. But are we able to look at it constructively and, you know, pay attention to what the Constitution says about Chapter 6, and even as a country, as a people, elect leaders who align with the Chapter 6? Are we able to do that?
Yeah, I believe we are able to do that. One thing I know about Mike is structures. When we have clear structures, it helps organize anything, anywhere. Okay? Let's say, for example, have we ever thought of having KPIs for our leaders? Key performance indicators. For example, when we choose a leader, we're looking at integrity, accountability, more so anything positive about our leader. Then how do we account for their action? Let's say we have a structure like a board that is governing them. And we give them a KPI. We can do a weekly KPI, monthly KPI, and yearly KPI. And we see this week, what has this leader done to us? This month, what has this leader done to us? Same to this year. And then we question them. We give you a clear structure that this week we want this to be done. By the end of the year, we need this to be done. And if you're able to achieve the KPIs, then you're the leader we want. You're the leader we want to walk the journey with. So you find most of the time we don't have KPIs for our leaders, and that's why it's very difficult to ask them questions. So they'll just come to enjoy na stories out.
But are the KPIs contained within the manifestos?
Of course, they are there, but Wakili has been talking about implementation. There's a gap in implementing. So if we can have a structure that can help us implement these things, it will be very, very useful to us as wananchi.
Would that work when we are talking about a vision that extends beyond the point at which we are?
As he was talking about that, I just thought, does our political culture really shows this? Because we've seen the integral people with clear self-track records, rarely do they even get to ballot level, or perhaps they'll get there and get very miserable number of votes that they will never want to vie again. An example, well, it's in public record, so maybe I can just use this. We all know the record of Patrice Loch Otieno Lumumba, PLO Lumumba. In one of his speeches, he says I think he was vying somewhere in Nairobi, spoke so well, told them what he will do very eloquently. But at the end of the day, Mheshimiwa, you said this, but how are you leaving us? Unatuachaje? And with that alone, PLO Lumumba never made it to the parliament. And you find that as a people, we've embraced such a bad political culture. And that's why even as we speak about these issues, the number one thing we need to cleanse is our political behavior. Money appears to have taken over our political spaces, in that you cannot do nothing without money. And I feel like that should be point number one for us to get to the integrity, to Chapter 6. Because as Wakili says, someone will come with questionable money, he will give us, people will clap, celebrate. They won't even look at the policies. When they get to ballot, you'll hear someone saying, I've eaten 100 bob from this one, let me cast my vote in his favor. And I think if we have maybe to look at that culture, maybe as an example, Kalau will then be used in this case. But still, that does not justify what the political culture looks like, because we have over 290 constituencies. That was just one. So I feel like we first of all need to come to realization that we have a very poor political culture, and we need to change that for us now to start a better way of moving forward. And I also wanted to speak on a point on the public participation.
Yes.
She had mentioned that. I strongly, it appears that in this country, we do not have public participation practically, but then we participate in public with completely zero impact. I mean, a number of times, and 2024 should be an example to this. We go to these halls, the jukwaas and all those sittings. You speak eloquently, you really feel your country. You remember the guy at Bomas, the people shall and the people may. You're so passionate about your country, but whatever is read out after the all document has been compiled and concluded, you find it's exact opposite of what you people submitted.
So reducing the whole exercise to a formality.
Yes. Actually, that is the right term, formality. And so as my good friend Ken Babu says, it's like we just participate in public and not public participation at all. So I feel like it's also a part that we really need to embrace and fulfill it, not just theoretically, but even practically.
Purity, as a country, are we able to call us, as a people, regardless, politics aside, politicians aside, as a people, are we able to call ourselves to account when it comes to matters of accountability and the kind of politics we want to drive beyond 2030?
I have had the privilege of moving around, and I tell you, Kenyans are one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And I'd say that intelligence sometimes is to a detriment. Tunakuanga wajanja sana. And I like what the comments that they've mentioned, and it's true. Impunity begets impunity. Our leaders don't come from Uganda or Tanzania; they're ours. And so in this instance, we have good people out there, that I will say, within the political sphere, within governments, within institutions, that still stand for what is integral. As Kenyans, kujita mkutano is very true. It is needed. When the conversation was happening in 2024, where we were saying we were tribeless, we were leaderless, we were everything, unfortunately, Kenyans were not tribeless. And that I say even with young people. I have done politics in University of Nairobi, and I can tell you for sure that we are still not fully tribeless. We are still leaderless, I understand, especially because we have such a deep distrust, and you see it even with social culture. One influencer does something, and the next thing you know, we've shifted posts. We want to cancel them. I think there's just that distrust to a point where we want to now self-govern, self-autonomy. And that is why when he mentioned about having people having KPAs and having a board, it just feels like we're trying to regulate the regulators and continue to climb it up until we're and it's just because of a lack of trust in each other. I think and what happens is also a lot of the political class basically people enter political positions without the capacity. I think there's people who know how to do politics really well. They game the sport of rallying up the masses and winning an election. What happens after is where we have tragedies upon tragedies. The challenge you have with Kenyans is that they fall for euphoria. We like the euphoria. The Tano Tena, there's a slogan, a chant.
The sloganeering environment.
Yeah, and then we also sometimes treat politics like sports. Ukiona timu moja inakaa kuanguka, you go. You shift.
Isn't that detriment to having issue-based politics?
And it is, and I dare say it is. But can I tell you, what happened in 24 was an awakening of national consciousness. We'll have a conversation on meritocracy. Do we have people who still fall for the euphoria? Yes. But I promise you, right now we're taking a lot of promises with a pinch of salt. And I think that is a beginning of a good conversation. Will we get there? Yes. But I believe it has to start with us. We can't be pointing fingers to the political class if we too don't stand for anything and we fall for nothing.
We have to introspect.
Exactly.
Yes.
But the consciousness has been awakened. We can't speak of integrity when we are not an integral people.
Yeah.
And it has cascaded all the way down. Politics has become about tokenism. Unapata mwanasiasa, the next thing you know, mheshimiwa, nimelala njaa, mheshimiwa, this, and this. Do they have the prerogative? Yes. But you need to understand, I think Kenyans need to understand that we need to let leadership be leadership. Sometimes we treat our politicians like our village elders. And what that means, you dump everything upon them. And the financial expectations that politicians have, even over campaigns, you hear someone having a budget of over 100 million to vie for a certain county. That money, most of it is going kwa mfuko ya mtu. Yeah? Not even campaign branding or anything. And that is why you're seeing even, NCAC, also IBC was talking about the budget, the campaign budget. The conversation has started, and I'm glad that young people are willing to challenge each other and ourselves and even our parents.
Yes. We shall come to that part. But yes. Yeah. We continue with this conversation regarding matters that regard Vision 2060 and beyond 2030. Thus, what you're seeing on your screens are the proceedings happening at the KICC, where the launch of the National Conversation Beyond 2030 is set to happen. And we shall be bringing you live updates of the events as they unfold. There you can see the national conversation, very important, that as a country we need to take in as far as the direction that we want this country to head is concerned. We're going to take a very short break for this conversation. We shall continue with this conversation with my panelists as time goes by, and we shall be bringing you that live coverage of that event.
Get ready for a captivating continental football extravaganza. KBC Channel 1 brings you exclusive coverage of the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, WAFCON. From Sunday the 26th of July to Sunday the 16th of August 2026. Welcome to Morocco! Morocco is the battleground as Nigeria defend their title against 15 other nations fighting to lift the prestigious trophy. Who will be crowned Queens of African Football? Courtesy of the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Watch all the action unraveling on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
With Colette Nzana looking for Mundua. It goes over her head. Oh, she's got knocked down in a big way. It's going to be a free kick. Asta Toko Njoya. There's the shot driven right through. It's a thunderous shot and a great goal. Stunning, absolutely stunning. Driven right through. You can see that there was only one place that that ball is going, into the corner. And Cameroon take the lead in this quarter-final.
Welcome back. We are still having a conversation regarding the national conversation beyond 2030. The events of that launch are as you are seeing on the screen, and we shall be bringing you live updates of that. But Wakili, still on matters of accountability, we know we are not short of plans we have implemented, we have come up with before, but as you put it, implementation has always been a problem. It has been affected by a myriad of things. So what happens if those responsible for Vision 2060 fail to implement it?
And my question is, who are those who are responsible for the vision? We the people. And we, the people, have donated these powers to our leaders. That is the president in the executive, and the president in turn appoints the cabinet secretaries. We've donated our powers to the members of parliament, and we've donated our powers to the members of the county assembly and of all the leaders. So we are the implementers, actually, of the Vision 2030. And of course, there are those roles that are well cut out in the Constitution and designated for key personnel or key institutions. So if these institutions, like I mentioned, can be independent and uphold the Constitution, then implementing a vision or any other agenda, and even the Constitution, will not be a matter of it will not be a difficult thing. It will be very seamless and it will be very easy. The only problem, and I think the reason as to why most of these things are not achieved, it's because of our traditional approach, where each and every administration comes up with an agenda. We should treat a vision as a national development compact, so that this vision leads the framing of our manifestos, so that any manifesto, for example, that is against the Constitution and against a vision that a country has settled on should be shunned upon. The other thing is that we should have phases of implementation of a vision. For example, we have now the Vision 2060. What are the key what are the key pillars of this Vision 2060? And then we can divide it into a 5-year plan. Then that 5-year plan gets into the annual budgets. Then from the annual budgets, then we have what my brother was saying, measures and indicators. Then we have independent monitoring. And independent monitoring may be a commission, but how many commissions have we formed, Migwi? And how many conversations? I was joking during the break that just recently we had a NADCO, was it National Conclave? We have had
intergenerational conversation.
We have had intergenerational conversations. We have had the NADCO, which was led by Kimani Ichung'wah and SK Kalonzo Musyoka, and they were geared towards uniting the country. And in the process of uniting that country, politics came in, and right now those who are heading and leading the conversation are reading from different scripts. So how then do we protect ourselves from political interests? Because politicians and politics have one thing, and of course it's the framework. Politicians have a way of branding and painting their personal interest to appear as though it is public interest. And we also must remember, rather not remember, but regret that politics in this country is ethnic-based. And that's why when a push comes to a shove, most of these politicians, they run back to their tribesmen, and they build their base, and their base become their bargaining currency. So when they sit down in government, Gachagua will say that I have the whole mountain with me. So it will not matter how you bring them together. What matters is, do you have the numbers that you can bring on the table? And once these numbers come in, they come in with their interests. That now it is, we formed this government, for example, we need this. So instead of even distribution of resources, which is within the Vision 2030 or Vision 2060, now we are talking about Vision 2060, the president or the executive or the political class, they retreat back to their own selfish interests and the interests of their communities, and they abandon the greater good. So that we are only one when we are collecting taxes, when we are paying housing levy, when we are doing, but when it comes to developments, it is our people. And if we are able to deal with this, then I think that will be a good. The other thing is parliamentary oversight. And that's I was respectfully disagreeing with my brother that even if we have an independent oversight body that is created specifically for 2060 vision, still it will not achieve much. Because in the Constitution, we already have Parliament as an oversight body. And they should do it not as a favor, but as a constitutional responsibility. But we have politicians who are shifting goals. A classic example, is that in the 2024 finance bill, for example, those who voted the finance bill, those who actually were spearheading so many, actually they were leading the conversations, are now the spokesmen of Linda Mwananchi. Karoli voted, for example, Karoli Omondi, who is the spokesman of Linda Mwananchi. He voted for the finance bill. We, the Suba people, refused. We protested. But against our wish, he went and voted for the finance bill. Today, the same youth, who is their spokesman, is the Karoli. The political bad manners and political self-interest that is carved so that we are comrades. You know, comrades, we don't love each other. We only come together because we are fighting a common enemy.
The interests are the interest.
So once that common enemy is gone, then we remain clueless. The same thing. So after all this is done, we do not want to look at, for example, Sifuna, what have you done in Nairobi in your role as a senator? We do not want to look at Karoli. What have you done in the past and currently? We do not want to look at, for example, Junet Mohammed. We only look at them from the lenses that favor us. So if we look at it from that point, then we miss it out. That is why I told you that the more things they change, the more they remain
the same.
The same. Next year, probably and most likely, whoever wins, there will be a handshake. And there will be, from that handshake, there will be casualties who will either walk out of government and protest, and immediately, just within 2 years, they will either be stating 2-term or finish and go.
We go back to the campaign mode
if
that
Ruto
we
wins,
always are.
There will be people who will be going finish and go. If maybe Sifuna, Matiang'i, or whoever person wins, in just 2 years, 1 term.
But
it's because of the political bad manners.
I strongly believe the reason as to why this should be a people-centered agenda. This should be a people-owned vision rather than political elites. Because as he mentions individuals, I also believe there also exists good leaders. I mean, there exists people like P.S. Makoha Boniface. I don't know even if you people hear about him, because these are kind of individuals, Makoha, Belio, who are always in rooms drafting, designing, and making sure that whatever has been discussed, it is documented towards now implementation. But then now that is where Parliament comes in, and I tend to agree with him on the implementation. They selectively implement what appears to be favoring them at the expense of the public. So I feel like there is also need to appreciate those who make efforts to ensure that things are done in ways they are supposed to be done. And just a clarion call to the young people. I feel like we should not just be beneficiaries. We need to be co-authors of this. Because I believe that each generation has their role to play. Just like the analogy of a fruit tree, one generation plants it, another generation waters it, and then whoever will benefit from these fruits, it's completely different generation. The Kenyattas of this nation played their part. The tomboyers played their part. It is now upon us who are now existing, and more so the young people, the energetic generation of this nation, that we need to take this positively, number one, because if we take it as a negative thing at the inceptual stage, how will we ever implement it? We will remain living in denial. Yes. So I strongly believe it is a conversation that we need to put our minds together and charter our ways, just as Chinua asks, where are the young suckers that will grow when the old banana tree dies? So we are those people that perhaps will take up the Vision 2060. You won't be, may it not be a shock that some of us here will be on those tables now implementing what we are starting to converse here today. So I strongly believe that we have some good individuals, and I strongly believe we can actually support them to ensure that whatever we discuss for the betterment of our nation is indeed what is incorporated. Yes. Just as I conclude, right now, world is moving technologically. And even in our economy, we are having a digital economy. I mean, we need to have this conversation, and it is us, the young people, who are mostly involved in digital economy. Yes. We need to bring the challenges we are facing so that we can see the solution in that document, rather than being at sideshows, leaving the peoples in 60s, 70s whose interaction with modern world is a bit not so good to decide for us what has to be done.
Yes. We are going to continue with this conversation, but I want us to cross over to KICC, where Victor Olo is on standby. Victor, if you can hear me, what's happening on that side and what can we expect? And also, I also believe you have a panel of experts on matters that regard the national conversation that is being launched today.
All right, so it's a very big day here in the country, the 12th day of August 2026. And of course, this is the Now Center where everything is going to be happening from the capital city here in Nairobi. Now, the president will be here at exactly 10 a.m. to officially start the national conversation on the Vision 2060, what is dubbed Beyond 2030, that is going to be steering this country for the next 30 years. Now, what I'm going to be doing is just to give you a quick wrap on what's going to be happening here at the Comesa grounds in KICC, and the delegates from the background here, everybody's actually taking their seats. We have got government officials, we have got representatives from both the national government, we have got the executive, and of course the legislative arm of government. All are going to be here to give their side of this particular event. But before then, let me introduce my three guests to help me just to discuss this, to get this into discussion and going. I have Deputy Governor of Mandera County. I have Daktari Maalim. Daktari, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. And of course, Professor Emmanuel Mutisia. Professor Emmanuel Mutisia is also an educationist and development expert, also joining us. Professor, good morning.
Good morning, Victor.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
It's going to be different today.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. And of course, next to him is Adede Adede. Adede is, of course, public policy analyst, also joining me. Adede, good morning. Karibu sana.
Thanks so much.
Okay, let me just start with you. It's going to be an important day in the history of this country. But we are going back to independence, where it all began. You know, Jaramogi, President Jomo Kenyatta had his position, Mwai Kibaki had his position, President Moi had his position, of course Uhuru Kenyatta had his position. Now we are in another step. What does this hold to you?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having this opportunity. Why this is important is that we know that one thing that is common to us is that we have Vision 2030, which came in 2008. And then post 2008, we developed a new constitution, 2010. The 2010 constitution, made it mandatory that there is public participation. So the reason why this is important to me is that this is an opportunity for Kenyans, all the Kenyans, to participate in where they want Kenya to be, as we talk today. But before, you see, it was under the leadership, the parliament and executive, just to decide where Kenya was supposed to be. But after the 2010 constitution, it was now made mandatory that there should be public participation. That's the reason why you see this process is important, so that every Kenyan voice is heard and they contribute towards where they want Kenya to be beyond 2030.
All right, Prof. It's a very important day in the Kenyan calendar. Looking back, what does it mean to you?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. This is an exciting day. Why? Because it is a conversation for Kenyans. When you go back to 1964, the development plans that have been that were created then were done by leaders, not Kenyans.
Yes.
And that was until the Vision 2030, which was also put together by experts. Now this one, the Vision 2060, is a vision for Kenyans. Kenyans are playing a critical role in coming up with the areas of focus that Vision 2030 should focus on, so that Kenya can grow to a first world country. And to us, this is a special opportunity for every stakeholder that means well for this country.
Yeah.
And moving forward, this is how things should be done in this country. That Kenyans should be part and parcel in coming up with strategies, with plans, with ideas, with proposals that are aligned with the Kenya of tomorrow. Because moving forward, we want to move Kenya to the levels of Singapore, to the levels of advanced countries. And that can only be done if we put all Kenyans together, let them get involved, make the process inclusive, and ensure that every proposal that brought on the table by every Kenyan is incorporated, so that we own the process and ensure that it is a process for all Kenyans.
Yeah. Doctor, look at it this way. It's a national conversation. I mean, it's happening at a time where we have got a new constitution altogether, and the president is quite so keen on having everybody on board. But let's go back to the history. What does it mean to you? Look at where you come from, Mandera. I mean, this is very important to you. You as a deputy governor, as a Kenyan, first of all.
Yes. Thank you very much, Victor. I generally agree with the line of argument that's put forward by my colleagues here. But, this is one of the most monumental times that we're going through and witnessing today. We had two other events like this in the history of Kenya. That was the sessional paper of 1965, which was the first blueprint that we have had, similar to this one, after independence. Then we had the 2030 vision, which was launched in 2008. And today we're witnessing another major milestone in terms of the economic growth and development of this country. And so I am really happy to be part of this myself and many of us who are here today, because this is what is going to guide this country in the next 30 or so years. But that said, every blueprint from 1965 to 2008 to this one will have a different agenda in terms of its content, while it's building on the many successes that we have had. For example, in 1965, the sessional paper, there are many things. It was a good start, but there are many things we got wrong in terms of inclusion and equity and equality within this country, that certain regions have been sidelined, and all our development was only focused on one line. On the 2030, that was a major milestone also in its own way, when His Excellency President Moi Kibaki launched it in 2008. And we have learned a little bit from the 1965 sessional paper, but we have a long way to go. I am hoping, as he said, Dr. Mutiso has said, that the big difference between the previous two and this one is that in this one we have public participation, that the ordinary citizen is inputting their opinions and their needs, as opposed to the previous ones, which were largely anchored on government experts and government decision making. So this will really, we are hoping that this will really going to be a game changer in terms of where we're going as a country. I am hoping that if we closed our eyes today, after this process kicks off and we open 34 years later, we are hoping to see a different country completely.
34 years later. Prof, look at it this way. We had the 3 pillars, the Vision 2030. How would you rate them? Up to now, where we are right now. We are almost coming to the end of Vision 2030, the 3 pillars. How would you rate them on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being excellent?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. First, I identify myself with what Dr. Mahmoud said. That this today is a special day for Kenyans because we are now being involved in the process of defining the Kenya of tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, when we go back to the pillars of Vision 2030, we have the economic, we have the social, and we have the political. I will rate the economic pillar way above the rest of the 2 other pillars.
On a scale of 1 to 100?
Well, 90%. Approximately based on the set targets that we set then. When you look at the GDP the GDP per capita in 2007, we were at less than $1,000.
Yeah.
We are now at 2,000 plus, which is still low, but yes, we have made some progress. When you look at the social pillar, we have moved from 2007 to today. I rate that around 75%. And then the political pillar, which is a bit complex, looking at what is happening in Kenya today. We may not have made a lot of progress, but given that we are in a new dispensation, you see we have county governments, we see there is a relationship between the national government and the county governments, we see the kind of politics that we do in this country, we have matured as a country. And so I would say rate all these pillars above, exceeding expectation, given where we are as a country. And if you do a comparative analysis between us and the rest of the other countries in the continent, we are doing so much well.
Dr. Malim is a beneficiary of Vision 2030, politically speaking. Look at it this way. The 3 pillars we had, what do you think should be copied from the 3 pillars to the next vision?
What you're saying?
What should be carried forward?
Going forward, I think what they have just said, the 3 pillars, we look at the social, political, and economic. In the economy, I agree with him. We have done, but the rating is not as high as he said because we are still dealing with the public debt. And then the fiscal policy, we are dealing with the corruption. But if you look at even the corruption, what the CS for Treasury was talking about, the single treasury account, which of course have reduced what they were paying the central bank from 9 billion. Last time he was saying he only paid around 30 million. Then what I think going forward, what should is the inclusivity, which carrying Kenyans along, making sure that every decision that Kenyans, we as the leaders are doing, Kenyans are carried along in everything they're doing. Then in terms of politics, our politics are still based on balkanization. So we really need to make our politics as clean as possible, so that we don't form coalitions around the ethnics and tribal lines. So I think if we deal with the issue of inclusivity and then we deal with politics that is inclusive, Kenya can move forward as we prepare for 2060. Yes.
Okay. Yes. But, Prof, we don't know what the Vision 2060 has already. It's not yet been launched. But what can you preempt? What does it look like to you?
No, we are starting a conversation.
Yes.
And that conversation is going to culminate into developing the vision, the blueprint,
right?
Vision 2060. Now, we don't know what is going to be in there, but a number of things will certainly be incorporated in the blueprint. One of them is the digital, sector, the science, technology, and innovation.
That is close to your heart.
Well,
I know.
That is a component that must be there.
Yes.
Because the world is moving to the tech. We're talking about tech products, tech solutions, and so on and so forth. And so Kenya must invest heavily in science, technology, and innovation.
Because even in Vision 2030, we never saw AI, dominating the world right now.
Because there was no AI then,
Exactly. So come 2060, what are you... the way you said, we wake up in Vision 2060, and here we are.
No, and as I said, I'm aligned with what he said. That, of course, science, technology, innovation We're talking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
We're talking about digital transformation in this country. We are talking about, embedding, tech in every sector that drives development in this country. Number 2 is about human capital development. For us to grow as a country, we must have quality labor force. Our people must be trained to the highest level possible. And that is why even in our institutions of higher education training, or even at basic level, we're talking about STEM.
Yes.
Because, again, that is where the world is going to. Number 3, we need to go back to the political processes. That we need to grow to being a country, but not a tribal, not tribal outfits. That when you do politics, we want to grow, make it a more national political conversation and less about the tribes that we have in this country. When you look at advanced countries, you realize that they do not talk about tribes, they talk about a country. And if you come out as a presidential candidate, you come in there to get elected from across the board, not being propped up by one of the tribes in the countries that we are comparing ourselves to. When you look at the economic part of it, I think the key is that we must focus more on manufacturing, industry development, the growth of industries, because then this is going to address the challenge of job creation. And we should not just create jobs just for the sake of it. We need to talk about decent or quality jobs for our people, especially the youth. And that will only happen if we focus on knowledge-based industrial development in this country.
Okay. Allow us to take a break. Just a quick break. Before we come back, let's cross over to the main studio. Take a break. Then when we come back, we're still going to continue this discussion before we get into the main plenary. All right. So let's take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
The wait is over. KBC iko Huduma Center. Starting with Nairobi, kupata huduma za KBC imekuwa rahisi. From digital guidance and signet services to booking of commercial adverts and documentaries. Visit our dedicated desks at Huduma Center GPO, Times Square, Makadara, Kibera or Eastleigh. Tunakungoja hapo. Whether it's a casual announcement or a specialized media solution for your business, we are here to serve you. KBC at Huduma Centers. Moving closer to you. Your station, your service.
Tunatambulika kwa mandhari yetu ya kuvutia,
tamaduni zetu, ukarimu wetu, vyakula vyetu, uchapakazi,
na pia kwa sauti tofauti za watangazaji wetu waliobobea.
Libengo liko hapa aka upcoming sponsor. Bila shaka hapa ni kama Pedeshe, ma Deep State, pia vile Cartels.
Tunaenzi talanta za pwani, tunakuza talanta za hapa kwetu nyumbani.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tuko mjengoni kama kawa na wanangu wengine wawili.
Usikose kutegea 103.1 Pwani FM, station ambayo itakupa fursa ya kupata uhondo kamili wa pwani na kuleta Wakenya pamoja.
Pwani FM, tafrija ya kipwani.
Welcome back. So this is what's happening. At the background, that is the police band giving you a clear signal that the function is already on. The question is, it is a very historic moment. The big question is, where will you be on this particular day? For us, we are here seeing it happen right before our eyes on this particular day. Now, Doctor, look at it this way. we have got devolved units of governance, and you are one of the beneficiaries, so to speak. But the question is, how should this be different? Should it be anchored in law? We are just across. Senate is here, the National Assembly is here. Do you think this one should be anchored in law so that we have got successive governments having the same kind of vision 2030, not interfered with, that we have got a blueprint as a nation, and that is exactly what we stand with?
Thank you, Victor. And I think that's one of the key visible weaknesses of the previous blueprints that we have had, the one of the 1965 and the 2030 vision. And the fact that it was not anchored in law is some of the gaps that we need to fill in. But going back quickly to the three pillars in terms of what we have achieved and why we have not achieved, is simply because we have generally focused on some parts of the economic blueprint, the developmental. In terms of infrastructure, I think we have done very, very well. In terms of politics, we're still struggling, political sector. A lot of polarization and ethnic incitements out there still. In terms of leadership and electing or nominating the right leadership, we're still way far, because it's generally not based on merit. It is based on, in the public sector especially, it is based on either clan or political preferences in terms of party preferences. But more importantly, where I find fundamentally we have not done very well with the 2030 vision is the social aspect. Do we have universal health care? Very important. We're still not there. Education, access to education, we are still not there. Access to water, the last mile, we are still not there. So a lot has to be done. And as you have said, what are we expecting in terms of the shift from 2030 to the 2060 vision is, I am hoping that we will put more focus and more energy on the social aspect more rather than the infrastructure, because largely we have achieved some of the key infrastructural aspirations that we have had. But what this is going to do largely is that previous blueprints were more aspirations, hopes. Right now, it will be a real, tangible programs and development agenda that's anchored in law, where it is going to be measurable in terms of what we have achieved. And one of the biggest issues that we have had is that every government will come in with its own flagship programs that are not necessarily aligned to the vision of 2030 vision. But now, which has led to abandonment of major infrastructural projects. For example, the LAPSET. Of course, the SGR is working, but it has its issues also. Many big capital projects that have failed because they were not aligned to the 2030 vision. But now, we are planning and hoping that this, as it is anchored in law, will have some sort of continuity. That if an administration comes in, the other administration that takes over is bound to take over those projects to completion, because we have lost a lot of money and a lot of resources from government to government, because one administration will abandon, the development projects that was started by the previous one. So this idea of having a flagship project by each administration, it is good to have a flagship project, but within the limits of the 2060 vision. So two things: continuity is very important, and that's what I'm looking at in this one. Secondly, we need to put more energy and more focus on the software, and that's why it's different now, because we are collecting opinions and we are consulting with the Kenyan citizens rather than doing these things in the boardrooms.
Okay. I'm told the president is already around, so we'll have to go back to the studio. And then, because the police band is already here, the president needs you to settle as well. Then now, after the event, we can do a quick post-mortem of the event. Then we can see what happens after that. So right now, I'm going to take you close back to our main studios, that is Broadcasting House. We settle, the president is already here. Then after the event, we'll give you a quick post-mortem of what is happening here at the KCC. Right now, let me take you back to Mike at the Broadcasting House.
Thank you so much, Victor Olo, coming to us live from KICC, where the national conversation beyond 2030 is expected to be launched by the president. And here in studio, we are just looking at it from the perspectives of my panelists. And just to read a few comments of the people who are viewing this conversation, Charles Maluki says, to speak about Vision 2060 now is not right. President should have waited till after elections and wait till it remains 1 year. That's the views of Charles Maluki. Another viewer is saying, Sisi kama mayouth, we shouldn't be crying to the government to give us a better environment for jobs. Hakuna vile watatusikia. What we should do is just do the little we can to better our lives and live by that means, not to outspend our hustle. Youthman anafaa kujua hiyo kitu. Hello, how can young people help grow the country? I think that is a question by one of our viewers called Mary. There's something interesting about what Charles Maluki has said. To speak about Vision 2060 is not right. Now is not right. President should have waited till after elections and wait till it remains 1 year. This is about the question of timing, Franklin. What do you think? Is the timing right? Is he right in what he's saying? His thoughts?
I think the viewer is very human, and he feels what we are going through. Because if you look at the problems we are going through, we need solutions. We need immediate solutions. Talking of 2060 is very far. In fact, hata ujuka utafika. Unaona. So there's no way you can start planning of, something that you're not sure of. So why don't we do something that you can do it at the current state? Something, let's have something tangible, something that is achievable, okay? Because there's the president is thinking good of us, but I'm sure hata yeye atakuwa hiyo siku somewhere at that point.
Shouldn't we have a plan of what we want to do in the next 30 or 50 years or 100 years? Shouldn't that be a priority? Shouldn't we have a plan? Because they say if you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Of course, we need to plan, and that's why we have short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. Okay? Already we are struggling to achieve short-term and mid-term goals. There's no way we can achieve long-term goals. First, we try at least achieve these short-term and mid-term goals. At least we see ourselves somewhere. Then from there, we can focus on the long-term goals.
Magoba, Mary is asking, how can young people help grow the country?
Can I start one first?
Yes.
My friend made me laugh when he said 2060 is very far. I hope we all know about the concept of China. I mean, their journey, their developmental journey. It was once not so developed, and then it moved to periphery, and now we can mention it among the developed nations. So there is this mantra in China that when you plan as if you will never die. And when you work to implement it, work as if you're dying tomorrow. What that means, have a long-lasting plan and implement it with much effort as much as you can. So I feel like talking about 2060, it's just timely. I feel like it's very timely. And the viewer should also realize we can excuse the president. Maybe he was working on better the bottom-up economic agenda and stuff, and maybe he thinks maybe his time is almost coming to an end, the first term, and so probably he thinks this is a lasting plan and a conversation. And the good thing, the thing that we are not keen on, this is not a president's conversation, and I think we will be eager to see what is being conversed there, but I feel like it's an invitation to the table for us.
The president is inviting Kenyans to have this conversation.
And now back to the question, what can young people do? I feel like the key and major thing that young people need to do is to be patriotic. Love your country. That should be the first step ever. Those people who gave us the country that we have right now, they were patriotic and they were young. The tomboyers of those days, the Kapenguria Sikhs of those days, the Mau Mau fighters of those days, I don't think they were that old. And you find that it was through that patriotic spirit having these conversations that we are currently having right now, those viewers who are participating, because you do not know who will then take whatever we are discussing here to that policy document. And just allow me again mention P.S. Makoha, because he's among the people that I interacted with, who is on planning, because he's the PS for planning and in treasury. So he's among the people forming this document. And when we were having this discussion, he was like, yeah, Emmanuel, what do young people want? And I feel like those are kind of leaders we want. What do young people want? So young people need to be realistic, number one. When we meet these people in such spaces, we need to tell them what we want, what we think is good for this country, for our generations and generation yet to be born, because those will be our grandchildren and such like people. So number one, be present, be patriotic, speak your mind, contribute to the nations in the smallest way you can. You do not have to do great things. Do that what you can, that will then contribute to something else.
Yes. And Purity, when you look at matters of Vision 2060 and the place of young people now in owning this, are they being invited to participate, or are they being given a chance to influence the outcome?
I would like to first comment on my colleague. Kenyans have been patriotic. I think patriotism has been most apparent by the fact that we refuse to accept the fate where we're in. And that is why you find we speak up often and as much as possible, contributing to national conversations.
Yes.
So Kenyans do speak, and they speak. In fact, we speak for other people in other countries, and standing up for a conversation on justice, conversation on development, conversation as a whole in the entirety of socio-economic welfare of the people. Again, this conversation that we're having now of 2060, if anything, we're the front runners. We should be the front runners, because at the end of the day, I would say young people are largely unhappy. If then they are unhappy about the conversation, then foremost we should be at the front lines in addressing some of this in these caucuses and in this dialogue. But if you noticed, the first time there was something called a dialogue, there was an allergic reaction to that kind of a forum. Why? Because dialogue has not been dialogue. Dialogue has been like talking to a wall. And simply put, I am afraid and I worry that this conversation, if not remedied and structured in the right way, will just be another euphoric movement. I do not want to be a sadist. I believe Kenyans have just the desire to see and to be in a country that they feel like they belong. But the economic situation, let me just speak, because that is what pains us, the pinpoint. That is a pinpoint for the Kenyans right now. Our purchasing power has reduced significantly. Recently, they're talking about how 1 in 2 people are going through poverty. We have the more than 80% in the informal sector. These are people who've graduated with A's. And now there's more graduates coming in with the reality of this thing called employment does not exist. But we've hit entrepreneurship. We're an entrepreneurial culture, I'll tell you that. And we're doing every much we can to absorb the shocks of the economic state that we're in. Here we need political goodwill and the need to realize that if this conversation is not by the people, they will lead it by themselves.
Wakili, you know, this is something that even the president has said, called on young people to participate in this national conversation. From where you stand, what would meaningful youth participation be, and at what point should the youth say, this is our vision?
Thank you so much. Allow me to first comment on something that I thought I should put up my thoughts on.
Yes.
Regarding the Vision 2030 vis-a-vis the timing and the initiator. I think we need to differentiate between Ruto as a person and the presidency and the responsibilities. That is why, even though the current president opposed the 2010 constitution, he was the deputy president in the first government actually to have the full term of in the first constitution, the actual implementation. So it's not about who initiates. It is about the contents, the procedure, and actually the implementation. That is what we need to look at. The youth's participation is very broad. We can be writing papers. I believe that is something that will come out from this, because this is not an event, it's a process. It's an ongoing process until that time that we shall come with a refined and fine documents. So from whatever will come out, if there are channels to do papers, to write to a committee that will be tasked with coming up and refining the vision, the youth should participate. Number two, the youths also have a council in Kenya. And the youth council in Kenya, I think they are youth senators all over. I do not know the effectiveness of that, but at such a time, they should ensure that there are clear guidelines and frameworks that youths can air out their points and their concerns and their thoughts around the Vision 2060. Then now going back to the Constitution again, the youth should also participate in the public participation gatherings, including this one, and even the subsequent ones to come, so that we are not just typing at the social media, we are also voicing out our thoughts and they are implemented. There is a problem with Kenya, and it's majorly on understanding the procedures, the formalities. You could be having a very good point or a good vision, or rather something that can easily resolve a problem that has befallen Kenya for a while. But how then do we communicate it? And if we can be able to understand that, the formalities of communication, then that will really work best for us. And number four, the youths must make sure that their voice counts. The qualifications of being a member of parliament is just being 18 years. Why can't you also vie for these positions? Because the youth are the majority. Why can't we shun the politics of tokenism so that we are in the decision making? Right now there is a very young PS. I think I'm even older than him. Fikirini Jacobs. Fikirini Jacobs was in the university long after I had left university. I started hearing of him. I think that was in 2020, past 2020. I was already an advocate. He's a fairly young man. So what happens between the period he's elected or he's appointed as a CS?
If I may cut you short a little, what you're seeing on your screens is the arrival of President William Samoei Ruto at KCC, where the launch of the national conversation beyond Vision 2030 is happening. That is the arrival of the President William Samoei Ruto and Deputy President, you can see there Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, Dr. Kithure Kindiki, Professor, that is, Kithure Kindiki. And we cross over to KICC and get to listening to what is happening.